Trebon, they got the game. Customer success is their claim to fame. On the podcast, they light the spark, elevating your skills, creating a mark. Let's dive deeper into the playbook, the secrets they share. No need to look from onboarding to retention.
Welcome to the Customer Success Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Roman Trebon, and with me always, Kevin Metzger. Kevin, we've hit a milestone, 50 podcasts released. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Can't believe we hit 50 podcasts.
I know. Half a century, man. That sounds like a lot when you step back, and it has been a fun little journey we've been on here.
Yeah. I think we talked initially in March of 23, where we started thinking about, hey, this is something we might want to put together. And here we are in August of 24 and 50 podcasts later. We got to talk to some great guests.
Amazing guests.
Yeah. I think that was one of the most, we thought that would be hard to do. We thought it'd be hard to get folks. Really found that people are really excited to have conversations and do the podcast. That was one of the biggest surprises to me. How about you?
That is the number one. I think my biggest fear going into this was that everyone would tell us no, that they'd be like, absolutely not. I don't want to talk to you guys. But that's been the exact opposite. It's been 180, right? Like the customer success community, which we've now, I can speak for myself, I'm way more involved in than when we first started having the conversations around this. I find 99% of the time, everyone's amazing. They're all willing and open with their time, their knowledge. They love talking about customer success. They love talking about what they're doing in their organizations. And that's been reflective in us getting guests. We reach out, we say, hey, we like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And everyone's been great about coming on the show, and the conversations have been terrific. Any other big surprises for you, Kev, outside of the guests?
I don't know whether I'd call it a big surprise, but the process for doing the podcast over time has evolved in such a way, with all the tools and how the tools have evolved and help bring the podcast. When we started this, there was a learning curve getting into it, and then the time that it took to put things together. And that's just come down so significantly, both because one, getting through the learning process and kind of defining processes, but then secondly, really the tools have advanced so much because of some of the AI technologies. All my ums and ahs, they get taken out by a tool. I don't really even have to go in from an editing standpoint anymore.
Yeah, our audience is like, what, Kev? They don't even know we say these because it's already edited out, right?
I'm going to have to intentionally put these back in as we discuss
exactly, to show them. Yeah, the process is interesting, Kev. I'm glad you touched on the process. So for a little behind the scenes, when we first started doing this a year and a half ago, I had no idea what went into a podcast. I just knew people talk. For anyone looking to go into the podcast space, I highly recommend doing it with someone. Personally, I couldn't have carried this on by myself. There's just too much work, personal life, your actual day-to-day work job, and then you have the podcast as well, where you go kind of up and down in terms of momentum. Having you, Kev, has been amazing, right? I feel like there's times where I'm super busy with stuff, and then you're reaching out to guests, you're doing the editing, and then I know there's times where you get busy and I can kind of pick up the slack as well. That's been terrific. And then just learning the new tools. I know you've been taking the heavy lift on that, but all these tools we're using, Buzzsprout, which I had never heard of beforehand, the stats you can see, who's listening, where they're listening, what platforms they're listening on. It's amazing how detailed you can get with our audience and how it's resonating in the space.
Yeah. And actually asked about big surprises. I think that was maybe one of the bigger surprises, just the reach that we've had. We've got people in Australia, we've got people you've had listens all over the world, which has just been, that was a cool experience to start seeing that in the stats. That was really neat.
We're big in Australia and Israel, Kevin. Now, a lot of our fans don't know that, but if you're in Israel and Australia, throw out a little Customer Success Playbook. We actually get some good stats there, which I think is amazing. All right, Kev, let's do guest highlights. We've had probably 40 guests. Is there one episode that jumps out that may have had a significant impact on you or something that you've learned that really jumps out?
Well, one of the biggest impacts, and honestly, it's been an ongoing relationship. Sue Namath Moore had a very big impact early on, right? I think she may be our third or fourth guest.
Yep.
And I think first off, she's out of Europe, right? Our very first guest was also out of Europe.
Dave Jackson, yeah.
Both of those were huge impacts. Dave's as the very first episode and having a conversation with Dave, where I was coming into customer success from, I think Dave really helped me take a new look at customer success by saying, hey, you really need to look at the operation numbers of running your customer success business. It's got to be producing results in a way that is shown in the numbers. And when he talked about, basically looking at your costs and what revenue you're responsible for. I don't think I had really looked at it that way previously. I looked at NRR, but it was more focused on customer satisfaction and all that up to that point. I think Dave started really changing my focus on that a little bit and looking at it more as you're running a business when you're running a CS organization, and that business should be producing results. And I think Dave was the first person to say it in a way that made me really see it clearly. How about you?
Yeah, well, you've lifted up a couple great ones, and now that you say it, hit the ground running with having Dave on. That episode was terrific. I'd say for me, I loved having Donna Weber on. Sometimes, Kev, where we do the podcast recordings, where we'll do like 3 in a week. It's just the way schedules line up. But when we did the Donna episode, we had a little bit of lead time, and so I was able to actually read Onboarding Matters. So I dove into Onboarding Matters. I was able to read it, and I love the book. So to have her on after having read it, I love that episode. I think I've spoken on this. We incorporate a lot of orchestrated onboarding into my world today. We've taken a lot from that conversation, incorporated it. I love that. The other one, and again, Kev, when we first started talking about the podcast, our objectives for it were to connect with great, really smart, amazing people. We wanted to learn ourselves. And I think we also wanted to give back to the community, right? If there's things that we can do to help give back to the community. I would say the episode, 2 episodes that I think I think all of our episodes resonate today just as much as when we recorded them. So you can go back and look at an episode from 8 months ago. It ages well, right? It's not going to seem outdated. 2 that I would lift up are Carly Yeager and Rachel Provan. I just think in this market, with companies still going through layoffs and people looking for jobs, I think those episodes, they're great if you're in customer success. I think they're great no matter what space you're in to listen to those episodes. How do you build on your personal brand in this market? I hope people got value out of those, and I think people will continue to get value out of those. Those jumped out to me as episodes that I reflect back on.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. What should we talk about next?
Biggest takeaway, any lessons learned from doing the podcast, any top lessons learned?
Lessons learned. So I think one of the bigger ones, like you said, you just mentioned the reasons we had for doing the podcast. We talked about it a little bit earlier too, just how willing people are to be guests and have conversations. This community, this type of work, the people who want to do this work, where you're focused on your customer and helping the customer achieve their goals and looking at how your products help them do their job better and how to teach them. I think that's huge. And I think that's reflected in the people in the community and the networking you get out of it. And from a networking perspective, I think that's been huge. It's been a really nice experience. The ability to give back and learn from all these people and develop relationships beyond just a quick conversation. When we reach out, we're having conversations with people about what we want to do. We talk about how the podcast is going to go before the podcast occurs. Then we get them on and we surprise them with the 5 questions at the end. We try and prep people with, hey, this is not what the exact questions are, although they've listened to an episode. I think they probably know them all at this point.
It's interesting, Kevin, as you were talking, there's a lot of similarities between doing the podcast and real customer success, right? In terms of like the guest experience, what their sort of journey is like from going on to the show. And I think we've really evolved that, right? If we look back today, not to say we have this on autopilot by any means, but we have a template we use to reach out to guests. Like, hey, here's why we're interested in having you on the show. They schedule time to talk with us. The presentation and the pitch is pretty much down pat. We pretty much, you could say it or I could say it almost verbatim, right? Yeah. The lead into the show, we send our guest an email with their bio, the topics, the questions we may ask. That's all templated, right? We have that ability to take information from their LinkedIn or their websites and then refine the theme and the topic and question to ask. We've incorporated that in the process. And then, the follow-up emails, like we really have gotten that the efficiency really, really tight. Plus we're using tools to help support that. And it's just like in CS, right? Like we're always trying to be more efficient, get done more with less. And for us, it's less time, right? Like we're both busy. So we got to do the show in the time we have available. It's amazing just how many similarities I find between the two. I also find it interesting when we talk now. We've talked on so many different topics in that I'll get into a real life customer success conversation, be it a client. And I'm like, the other day, someone mentioned an ideal customer profile. And I was like, oh, ideal customer profile. Like, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking we just talked to Kevin Malfer about this the other day. I already knew it. We talk about these things all the time. When they come up in my real world, I feel so much better prepared. We've talked to all these experts in the space. And, I didn't realize, Kev, I think when we first started doing that, the knowledge transfer that would happen, but man, it's really been significant for me. Like, we learn all these stuff by having all these guests, not just on the show. We're talking to our guests leading up to the show. We're talking to them during the show. We're talking to them after the show, and we're learning throughout. And man, for me, it comes through in day-to-day conversations all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, really with the guests, a lot of the guests are topic specific and they've got their newsletters and things like that. I continue to learn from the guests after the shows, right? Just because they're all focused on the field and looking at how to develop the field from their particular perspective, it helps us continue to grow and make the shows more relevant as we grow too, right?
Absolutely. And Kev, we're not done with 50. We're not stopping at 50. We actually have almost the end of the year booked up. We are getting close to filling the 2024 slots, which kind of goes into how amazing the community's been, right? So you should be checking out our LinkedIn page, Customer Success Playbook. We're going to have some items out soon on what's coming. Not only do we have great guests lined up, we may do a live version of the podcast in real time. You can listen and get your questions answered as part of the show. I know I'm excited about that. Plus, we have so many great guests lined up the second half. And we may actually have our first repeat guest. We haven't had a repeat guest. We're knocking all these new things out, Kev. We had one of my partners came on, right, recently. We had 2 guests on at the same time. We've never done that. We're talking about doing a live podcast. A repeat guest. We're knocking down a whole bunch of firsts at the back half of the year here. I love it.
Can we announce the live guest and the date and all that?
Let's roll, man. I guess it's legit, right? All right. So we are going to have a live podcast and we'll provide how to register, how to sign up. We're teaming up with CS Insider. If you've not gone to CS Insider, you got to go there. It's csinsider.co. Join there's 10,000 plus other CS professionals that sign up for their emails. They send out 2 action-packed emails each week. We're going to do a live episode September 12th at 12 o'clock Eastern. Our guest is going to be Justin Chappelle. He's with Growth Molecules. He's going to talk about customer enablement and education. And so, that's going to be awesome. So the way that format will work, you'll sign up, you'll get a meeting invitation. You'll have the ability to interact with Kevin, Justin, myself, ask questions, get your questions answered. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to turn that into a podcast as well. So that's going to be a great new endeavor for us.
Yeah. I'm super excited about it. And Justin, if you aren't aware of who Justin is just awesome. He's located here in the Atlanta area. He was at Sixth Sense. He's now with Growth Molecules, and really, really bright guy. He's done some consulting with Bain or speaking for Bain Consulting. Super excited about this conversation.
Yeah. Justin, you've heard on the show, we have our monthly pickleball networking event. Just had another one on Friday. Justin's a regular at those. Last time he came, we were talking about all the stuff he was doing with AI and customer education enablement, Kev. I cannot wait to dig into this with a live audience. It's going to be amazing. He's doing some really cool stuff. Yeah, it's going to be great. We got a busy second half, so we can't stop at 50. Let's use this as a jumping point. Before you know it, we'll do episode 100. Who knows? That'd be crazy.
That's what I'm thinking. It'll be soon.
we got our own polo shirts now. We have a logo. You're looking good with that shirt. I got to get my shirt on. I wear a Vanderbilt shirt. Like, I didn't even go to Vanderbilt, but I want to look 80% smarter than I actually am. I will. Yeah, I love the polos. I love what we're doing, Kev. I can't thank you enough, man. Seriously, like, I love doing this with you. It's been an amazing, fun journey. Man, I've learned so much and been terrific doing it with you.
Yeah, and I just feel exactly the same. Great partnership. And like you said earlier, there's times where things ebb and flow, and having the partnership does make it just kind of, it's fantastic. And I feel like we both have been able to really drive this to make it happen. And I'm excited about the fact that we're halfway to 100. Let's keep going.
Halfway to 100. And one of our highlights, we got AI intro music now. We can talk about the intro. Yeah, if you listen to the intro, maybe we'll hit 100. Maybe we'll change it up. Maybe we'll go a reggae intro. Who knows? That's the power of AI. It can change so quick.
I might have to add some pictures of us dancing that we never even did.
Who knows? Kev, by the time we get to 100, it may not be you and I. This may be AI Roman and AI Kevin doing the show. And we'll just be sitting back. Things are changing fast.
We can do it.
All right. Well, if you're listening to this episode, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Check out our LinkedIn page, Customer Success Playbook. You'll find our guests and episodes there. At Roman Trebon on LinkedIn. Reach out, connect. Kevin Metzger. We're always up for connecting, chatting. We'd love to hear what's on your mind, guests you'd like us to have on, topics, etc. We really appreciate you listening. And as always,
keep on playing.
With each episode, they share their views, strategies and tactics that you can use. From challenges to triumphs, they cover it all, helping you navigate when you hit a wall. So tune in now and join